All right. One of my co-hosts, can you confirm that that recording started? Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our second of our community town halls. This evening, we're going to be hearing from members of our academics and assessment and evaluation departments, as well as our compliance manager. My name is Sarah Stell. I'm the Director of Communications. So I would like to welcome you this evening. I do have one update I'm going to share with everyone before I pass it over to our compliance manager. This comes from our IT department. So we are currently working this year on a project to bring all laptops and hardware management in-house for next school year. So that will be for the 2025-2026 school year. And that's going to allow us to provide better support to our students and their families. Um, we are currently in pilot phases and we'll be having focus groups and testing the functionality of the devices as well as our ability to offer support so that we can streamline those processes. If you have already received a new laptop from Stride this year, this is separate from that. But no action is needed at this time. So again, this is a project that we are working on for next school year. We will be sharing more communications about this in the spring. There is no action needed at this time. Just want to keep everyone aware of what's coming. So I'm going to turn it over to our compliance manager, Jaleesa Epps. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let her share hers.
You want to come?
All right. Hi, everyone. Give me one second. All right. Hi, my name is Jaleesa Epps, and I'm the compliance manager here at Insight. Thank you all again for taking the time out to join us tonight, and I promise not to take too much of your time. I just wanted to go over a few things really quickly, specifically our parent and family engagement policies. So here at Insight, we now have two parent and family engagement policies. We have our school level policy, and then we also have our district level policy. Our school level policy focuses on specific strategies and activities implemented within our school to involve our parents, while our district level policy outlines broader expectations and goals for the parent and family engagement here at our school. Both of those policies are listed directly on our website under the academics tab. So when you go to our website, click on the academics tab, it will take you to a federal programs tab, which will then bring you to this page, and we will have both of the policies listed right there. They're both also translated in a few different languages for those who might need some translation services. And then they're also sent out in each newsletter as well. So I just wanted to take this time to use this as a reminder that earlier today, the Parent and Family Engagement Policy Survey was sent out in the school newsletter. This survey is in reference to the two policies I just talked about, both of the parent and family engagement policies. The survey is really, really short. It shouldn't take you more than 3 to 5 minutes to complete. And it's just really asking for your opinion about the contents of the policy itself. We did send out a similar survey last year, and we received some feedback from our families stating that the district level policy was a little difficult to really take in. So as a result of last year's survey, we came up with the school level policy. That's a lot easier to understand, but still answers any questions you might have about how the school is working with our families to implement and choose the title programs that we have here. And then the survey was sent out in the newsletter, but at the end of the presentation, I'm going to drop the link in the chat just for easy access if you wanted to pull it up and complete it tonight or at your earliest convenience. The exciting part about the survey is that we are going to randomly choose 10 survey participants to receive a $35 gift card from our school store just for completing the survey. The school store has all types of great things from mugs to hoodies to toys. It's literally everything on the school site. So that's going to be great. So if you go ahead and complete the survey, you never know, you just might win a gift card. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the survey link in the chat, and I'll pass it over to Dr. Hughes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaleesa. And actually, while Dr. Hughes gets her slides ready, I see some folks putting their names in the chat, so thank you. It's so lovely to see you here. I'm going to put the sign-in form link into the chat again. We do need everyone to complete that form, both staff and our parent and guardian guests. So again, that link is in the chat. And those of you who are parents and guardians who fill that out, that's what we're going to use for our drawing for the school store. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Can I just make sure that you're able to see my screen? Good to go. So given that report cards have just recently been distributed to all of the families of the students that we serve, we thought tonight would be a great time to walk through a couple of pieces of information that are related to report cards. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the academic standards that are measured in ELA, math, and science. And then we'll talk about a bit about how you can monitor your child's progress in their current courses through Schoology as quarter two and the remainder of the school year unfolds. Then we'll review some of the ways that we assess students' learning and their progress towards the academic standards that we cover in each of our classes. And then finally wrap up with some conversations around the importance of participation in state assessments, and then some of the intervention and supports that we provide students who need additional support beyond what teachers are providing in the classroom. So we'll start with just a brief overview of the academic standards. So the PA core standards describe exactly what students should learn by the end of each grade level. And so having clarity around the expectations of student skill development in each subject and grade level gives parents, teachers, and students some common language to focus conversations about how we are preparing students for the work ahead of them in the next grade level, as well as preparing them for lots of different options once they graduate high school, whether that's, going straight into the workforce, entering college, exploring career training, apprenticeships, military service, etc. And so each of these links that's here will take you to some state documents that give you much greater detail about the specific standards within English language arts, math, and science, and how they progress over time from kindergarten through 12th grade. You can feel free to explore those if you so choose. But I do have just some high-level overviews that I think will be helpful just for grounding us as you're looking at your child's report card in these core subject areas. So in English language arts, we really focus on the literacy skills that are important to success in adulthood. Beginning in grades K through about 5, we focus pretty heavily on foundational reading skills. So making sure that students have the skills that are necessary to read text on their own with a certain level of accuracy and at a pace that is manageable for them to process the words that are part of that text. From there, we teach students how to comprehend a variety of types of informational and literature text. And then we also focus on writing, and in particular in writing, how to write different types of writing samples. And then most importantly, how do you incorporate evidence into your writing in order to support the arguments or the claims that you're making. And then we round out the literacy skill development with a focus on speaking and listening. And so that's where you'll see opportunities for students to practice presentation of their, works and their thoughts and ideas, as well as an explicit focus on some key vocabulary that is really important to success in the workforce and beyond. In math, what you see here is just again like a high-level summary of the 4 major reporting categories that we focus on in math. and how the skills within each of those reporting categories build from kindergarten through high school. But what I really want to focus on with you in the conversation tonight is how we approach the instructional process in math. So just as important as it is for students to understand the basic operations, addition, multiplication, division, subtraction, it's really important for them to know then how to apply those skills in real life situations. And so what I would like to encourage all of you to be looking for as you're supporting your child, both during the math classes, during the school day, as well as in supporting their continued progress at home, is looking for examples where students are being given an opportunity to apply what they're learning to real world problems. And so this hyperlink will take you to a resource that will kind of give you some examples grade by grade of what those practices would look like, for example, in a kindergarten classroom compared to a second grade or a fifth grade or a middle school or high school classroom. And so again, hoping that these resources will give you just a little bit more clarity around the types of things that you should be looking for and ways that you can then focus conversations with your child's teachers during parent-teacher conferences or during other opportunities where you're collaborating with your child's teachers. And then finally, in science, we're transitioning along with all of the other educational systems in the state of Pennsylvania to a new set of science standards. With these new standards comes a focus on 5 main disciplines. So students throughout the course of kindergarten through 12th grade will be exposed to life science, as well as physical science, earth and space science, technology and engineering, and environmental literacy and sustainability. And again, like math, in science, it's really important for students to know certain facts that are critical to each of these discipline areas. But more importantly, what the transition to the new science standards are encouraging our teachers to focus on is, again, applying that science-specific knowledge to problem-solving, real-life experiences and real-world problems. And so some of the critical practices that you should be looking for in science classrooms are opportunities for students to ask questions and define problems, developing and using models to demonstrate their thinking, planning and carrying out investigations, analyzing and interpreting data, using math and computational thinking, constructing explanations and designing solutions, engaging in arguments from evidence, and obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. And so really teaching students to be scientists in their day-to-day environments and experiences in their community. So let me just pause there and see if there's any questions or comments in the chat just about what I've covered so far in terms of English language arts, math, or science. Is there anything in the chat? Okay. So in addition to the report cards, which you all recently received, you have access to monitor students' progress in their current courses through Schoology. And this visual just shows you that you would go to the grade report through the course dashboard. And what that will show you is the where your student currently is in terms of work completion, as well as their grades on the work that they've completed to date. And so this will give you a really nice tool that you can reference throughout the course of a quarter, so that leading up to report cards, you can have a pretty good sense of how your child is doing in terms of making progress towards those standards that in each of the subject areas that we just reviewed. Another really important resource that we wanted to highlight for you tonight is the Parent's Guide to Student Success that was created by the National PTA. This link will take you to a suite of resources that will break down just some critical summaries of the standards within English language arts and math at each grade level. And so if you were to select a grade level, I just have fifth grade teed up for an example purpose. And then once you click on the link, what this will take you to is a guide that will give you a general overview of what academic standards are and why they're important, which is what we had already discussed earlier this evening. But then within English language arts, it'll give you a sample of some of the specific things that you can expect your child will be working toward by the end of the grade level, as well as some ideas for how to focus conversations with teachers specific to what your child is learning and how they're progressing in English language arts in fifth grade or whatever grade level you're on. And then likewise, it provides similar information for math. And then each packet ends with some ideas for how you can help your child extend their learning in both of these subject areas at home outside of the classroom. And so our hope is, again, that these documents will give you just a bit more clarity and detail about what we're covering in English language arts and math at each grade level, and hopefully provide a valuable resource for focusing conversations then with your child's teachers. And so they offer those documents for every grade level, kindergarten through high school. And then finally, before I pass it over to Mr. Grande, I wanted to just sort of provide like a quick overview of the way that we assess students' progress in each of these standards throughout the course of a school year. So we use a combination of measurement tools. The most prominent is teacher-made assessments in the classroom. That is primarily what you see reflected in students' report cards. And so it's those teacher assessments that are focused on the standards that have been covered in a given quarter. And it's giving you an indication of where your child is compared to where they should be at that particular checkpoint in the school year related to the standards that have been covered. In addition to teacher-made assessments, we also use some additional screeners. So kindergarten through fifth grade, we use AimsWeb, and then sixth grade through high school, we use ExactPath. What those screeners help us identify is where students are in terms of specific skills that provide a foundation for students to then be able to focus on and develop the skills that are outlined in the standards. And so we use those screeners. We use the AimsWeb assessment and the ExactPath assessment to help us identify students who may need additional support above and beyond what classroom teachers are providing during those core subject area periods. And so those data are what Tony will cover in a couple of minutes. So when he provides an overview of MTSS, he can explain how we then use these data to determine which tier of support students need. And then finally, the state assessments. So the state assessments are required of all systems in Pennsylvania. And these serve as a measurement that is consistent across all districts and schools in the state and provides a common way of measuring students' progress towards those grade level standards. And so these assessment data are really important for parents, for teachers, for those of us in this room to be able to measure how well are we doing with supporting students in mastering those standards compared to every other system in the state of Pennsylvania. And so it gives us a really good indication, not just of like the effectiveness of our education program, but also gives us some ideas for continuous improvement. So we can continue to ensure that we are constantly improving the educational experience and the outcomes for students in each of these subject areas. And so there is also a hyperlink here that provides a family guide to the annual state assessments if you want to read more about Pennsylvania's system of assessment for students for grades 3 through 8, and then high school uses the Keystone exams. And so with that, I will pass it over to Mr. Grande.
Good evening, everybody. I am just gonna pull up my screen to share and make sure it is working. Hopefully, is everybody seeing the slide deck? Perfect. I see thumbs up. I see happy people. Let's rock and roll. I'm excited. So, here tonight to talk about kind of our multi-tiered systems of support framework, which we call MTSS. Just to give all of you as families and members of the Insight community kind of an understanding of what it is, how we utilize it, and one of the major ways we're looking to support our students in a number of different ways. So I start by pointing out, and I have to give Sarah Stell a big shout out for the visual here because I'm a really big fan of what it represents. So when we talk about tiers of support, what we're really talking about is trying to identify where is a student's current skill development in a number of these kind of areas that we look at, and where can we provide more support? Where are their strengths and where are their areas of continuing development? And really, I think what this shows is tier one is the foundation of what our school does. By that, I mean this is the foundation of the instruction that we're providing all of your students. This is the focal point of how we educate all of our students and work with you as family members. Then what we do is we look at through screening, and I'll go through with a little bit more specifics here about where some students might need an extra layer of support to make sure we're building the skills that they might still need some support with. And that might be through tier two instruction, which is a smaller group, and then tier three, which is an even smaller group than that. And they're really focused on the instruction and the support that those students might need to help build those skills. And what I like to also point out is our MTSS program, we really like to focus on how it is comprehensive. By that, I mean it is not just focused on academic skills development, but it's really focused on the three areas under that umbrella, which I'm going to talk more about here shortly. Also, I'll point, recently we added a component to the website, which is a hyperlink, which is provided here, which will give more information about what MTSS is there. It'll provide some of what I go through today, as well as just some extra videos and guides that might be related to screening and different things like that, which we'll talk more through, but there's also that resource there. So first, I'd like to talk about the three I's of MTSS. So what are the three I's of MTSS? We in education love letters. So our three I's look like this. The basic formula for what we want to do is identify which students are doing well and doing awesome, and which ones maybe need some more support in one area that we want to target and develop. That's kind of what we call our baseline. Then we intervene for those students. We provide supports, outline goals for them that we work on, and then we inspect. How is our support going for the student? Are they making those gains? If not, what do we need to change on our end to make sure they continue getting the skills development that we need? So that's really the basic kind of foundation. We identify, we intervene, and then we inspect just to see how it is going. So MTSS supports some very basic overview. One, it is provided to all students throughout our district. All students K to 12 will receive some level of MTSS support from tiers 1 to 3. So within it, it contains what we call three components. Those components are attendance, social emotional learning, and functional behaviors, which we call the SELF, and then academics, particularly reading and mathematics. So just to talk a little bit about those. So attendance is obviously crucial to making sure we have access to work with your students and they have the opportunity to work with us. So we like to track that, provide supports where needed, and collaborate with families continuously and ongoing to make sure we have that attendance, consistently. Social emotional learning and functional behaviors. So I sometimes get questions on this about kind of what does SEL, or the self as we call it here, what does this mean exactly? Really, what we're looking at is developing some skills that are really shown to be uh, some of the most impactful, not only to success in like the classroom or in school, but beyond once graduating, skills that we use every day as adults. We want to empower students and build those early and often. So what does that mean? Things like our relationship skills. For those of us, we interact with people a lot, whether it's through jobs, different things we might do in the community. Some of those abilities to work with others is really, really important. Making responsible decisions, being aware of maybe when you're experiencing difficulties with your emotions, or when you have an undesired outcome, kind of how do you respond to that? Things that we are used to and are naturally gaining, we want to provide support for students because, again, that allows them to not just be successful in the classroom, but most importantly, beyond when students graduate and go into whatever pathway they choose. So that's why we really stress the importance of that for our students and families. And then obviously academics as well. So as Dr. Hughes laid out, one of the biggest things we're kind of targeting there are some of those skills that are bedrocks to making progress within the curriculum. And that's really where we're trying to provide that support where needed for students. So the other piece of this that's really important is that we try to do it in a way that's preventative. What does that mean? We're catching where students might need support as quickly as we can and providing supports quickly so that they don't have to go through and struggle through the curriculum. We're able to catch them quickly, provide supports, provide those that information to you as the family. So we do that by completing screenings. We have 3 screening windows. We have the fall, which all students kind of take a screening at the beginning of the year for academics, and then for our SEL, or self, as we call it. Then we provide those screenings in the winter, and then we provide them in the spring. These are called our benchmarking periods. So we have them 3 times a year, every year. This also allows us to see growth for those students as they continue through programs. How are they gaining? How are they doing with learning these skills? Are we seeing that continued trend of growth? Are we seeing any areas that might be difficult that we want to provide some of that support quickly for them? And as I mentioned kind of above, these are really developed. The reason these 3 areas were really chosen are these are the bedrock support areas that are the components that are so important for student success in school and beyond. I say that to say a lot of times when I work with a number of people and we're talking about our program, there's a question of, oh, so it kind of goes attendance, SEL, and academics, kind of like stacked on top of each other. That's kind of how they build. And what I like to really point out is these 3 areas kind of interact with one another, right? If you think about students who maybe evidence difficulties with some academic skills, they might want to avoid a particular class or avoid coming to school. So that's where we look at it as kind of an all-encompassing approach for students. How can we support students holistically, the whole student, to make sure they're maximizing their opportunity and we're providing the best opportunity for them to be successful here and again after high school. So that's really why we kind of put it as a circle that kind of consistently goes. So we're always tracking those things, always checking them through our screening process just to make sure that we're intervening when needed for all students. Before I jump to state testing, I have a propensity for lots of talking very quickly. I want to see any questions, comments, concerns on anything I went through. I'm always happy to chat about this. Hopefully it's being conveyed how passionate I am about supporting our students. So if there's any questions, I can't see the chat. So if somebody lets me know if there's a question in there. But if not, I'll jump into a little bit of state testing. I think I'm actually doing pretty good on time, which is a rarity for me, so I dig it. So, state testing. So I just want to build off what Dr. Hughes kind of talked through there. So, the biggest thing with state testing is we're going to talk about a little bit of not only the kind of like when it occurs, what it involves, but I think a little bit of the why and sort of how we're utilizing that data, which Dr. Hughes really started talking about, which I kind of want to build upon a little bit and add more context for everybody. So we really look at these as our four major state tests. The PSSA, which encompasses grades right now of 3 through 8 and assesses reading, math, and science. And for everybody's convenience, I put there which grades those occur in. So 3 through 8 for reading and math, science 5 through 8, that kind of thing. Keystone. One thing I like to point out here is traditionally it occurs in 11th grade, but that might not always be the case depending on if students complete these what are called trigger courses. So when we look, really what the Keystone is looking to assess is algebra, biology, and English language arts. So traditionally in 11th grade is when students might begin taking these, but it can sometimes occur in different, grades in high school as that's a little bit different. But just to point that out, traditionally 11th grade. Um, we have our Pennsylvania Alternate State Assessment or PASA test. Same grades as the PSSA and Keystone. This is typically received for any students who are receiving alternative standards, usually through our special education department. So, but that is kind of the alternative or the PASA test. And then Access, which is completed by students in the English Language Learner Program. So those are kind of the major state tests. So why do we have state testing? I think one of the biggest things there that Dr. Hughes mentioned is it's as much a view for us of how we're supporting your students as anything. By that, I mean, it helps us in determining students' year-over-year growth in these, how are we educating our students in those standards and making sure they're getting access to that information and we're instructing them appropriately. That's all there. So we're getting to kind of see how they're doing. But it's a way for us as a district to say, how are our practices going? Where might we need to pivot? Where might we need to provide additional support? So we're kind of having that overview. So that's one of the biggest things is it's really an assessment of kind of how we're doing as well as how your student is doing. So that's one of the biggest things there. As mentioned, they do this by assessing the current knowledge base of the students to make sure they are receiving quality instruction. Any publicly funded school, whether it's our brick and mortar partners, us as a cyber charter, we all as publicly funded schools must participate in the state testing. So that is a component. So it is a requirement that we have. But I look at it as a benefit and an opportunity for us to assess how are we doing working with your students. But it is something that we, that are mandated to give as well. Benefits. A lot of writing on here, so I'm not going to read it to you. It will be available in the PowerPoint, but I think one of the biggest things is this is a nice synopsis, kind of summary of everything that we were talking through, right? This is really a chance for us to see how are we educating your students? How well are we doing? Where do we need to continue to develop? Where do we need to kind of continue to work? And where can we target supports for your students? There's just one additional way for us to look at that. So that's really kind of why, and there is benefits to Insight as well as just a part of kind of the state and how they're looking at our progression. But I really view it as a way for a litmus test for us to see how we're working with your students and where we can continue to grow and how they are growing in our program. Questions about state testing? If there are, of course, throw them in the chat. Give me a shout out. I love hearing from families, staff. If you have any questions on it, I can't imagine, but if you do, feel free to shout them out. And if you think of one later, please feel free. Nicole Lasky is our state testing coordinator. I am very privileged to be able to work with her. And then myself as the director of assessment and evaluations, always happy to hear from families and take questions. So this would be another avenue as well.
Mr. Grande, we do have a question in the chat.
Yes, love it. Okay.
Let's see. So since you want to take them now, does state testing determine placement in sections for next year's grade level?
No. Great question. It does not. So that is through like our process, how we work with our students. This is simply a way, a litmus test to see how they're progressing, but most importantly, how we're educating your child or your children. So no, it does not determine that, but that's a great question. I'm really happy that that was asked. I'm gonna assume now silence, as I always say, silence is golden, so I'll keep rocking and rolling. But this is what I'll end on for my portion is we're really excited. One of the other big things that this is a benefit for, even as a virtual school, this is an opportunity for us to see you and your students. That really does mean a lot to us. We really love having that opportunity. I have ideas. I'm working with Nicole and all of our awesome leaders and building leaders to make the testing experience not feel like such a testing experience, but provide it as an opportunity for fun, getting to meet your teachers, meet your classmates, meet other families. So as we get more information on different ideas for the events and how they will roll out, we'll be sure to push that out to all of our families. The last thing I'll mention too is there is a survey that's going to come out from Mrs. Lasky that's really going to focus on questions for all of our parents around possible barriers for the state testing that maybe families experience and how we can best support them. So if you get that and feel wish to answer, that really helps us and our continuing evolution for providing these state tests. And I think for the benefit of everyone's ears, that might be my last slide. But thank you all so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Mr. Grande. Thank you, Dr. Hughes. So at this time, we do have time for questions or feedback that any of our guests have for us regarding the topics we shared tonight. So if you do have a question, you can raise your hand using the raise hand feature here in Zoom. You can put the question in the chat, or we're a small enough group, you can just, unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question. And while we allow time for that, I'm just going to resume my screen share. And I have our upcoming events slide up on the screen for viewing as people process all of that information you just received. I will say you do have access to these slides, and actually let me show that. Sorry, my Zoom window is blocking. There we go. Okay, so on our website, our calendar, which you can access very quickly two ways, either by clicking the calendar icon right up at the top corner or under news and events, it is linked there as well. So for the town hall meeting, if you click on that, even though it will be in the past, you will still be able to access the slides from this presentation. We will also share them in the next school-wide newsletter, as well as the recording of this meeting. And as well as that, you will also find all of our upcoming community engagement events. We even have some in January that I believe have been added to the calendar. Our community engagement coordinators have been very busy. So we have a few more events happening during the month of November, and then we have a very full December coming up around the state. So again, these are also on the calendar. They're listed by county and then the name of the venue. And the sign-up forms are linked right there in those calendar events. So I'm going to take a peek at the chat again. Do we have any additional questions? And don't see any. We are currently working on planning topics for January and February's community town halls. We are going to take the month of December off from them. It is quite a busy month for many people. So we will be returning in with these in January. And as soon as we have that date set, we will get that out to everyone and let you know what we're planning on sharing then as well. Just another reminder, if you haven't already, the sign-in form is in the chat. There is a link to that. We do ask that everyone who joined us this evening, both staff, parents, guardians, guests, complete that form. And especially for our parents and guardians, we will use that form to do our drawing for items from the school store. And if your name is chosen, you will hear from probably myself to get that ordered and shipped directly to your home. So if we don't have any questions, I just want to say again, thank you all for joining us this evening. It was wonderful to have this time with you. Hopefully, this information was helpful to you. And if you have any questions, there are contact email addresses in the slide, so feel free to reach out.
Thanks all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Sarah, should we stop the recording?
Sure. Good call.